So today we're going to start a series where we talk about specific tools that can be used as a false multiplier when we're working on the homestead in a survival situation during SHTF. What we're looking at here is being able to work on the most stuff with the least amount of tools in a very efficient manner. So when we're looking at tools, we're going to look at a lot of specialty stuff that you may not imagine you would have a use for. But what happens is it allows you to work on materials, equipment, vehicles that you couldn't work on otherwise. The other thing it does is allows you to do different types of maintenance, assembly, and manufacturing in a very efficient manner that you couldn't do otherwise. In one instance I'll give you is when you're doing maintenance on a car or a truck, having tools that you can reach into areas will allow you to do different maintenance and repair chores without disassembling major parts of the vehicle. Now, today what we're going to do is look at pass-through sockets. What these are sockets that are hollow, so you can use them for fasteners that need to go on threaded rod, long bolts. And this is one of the handiest tools that I have. I got this Gear Ratchet Vortex pass-through socket set when they first came out, and I've used this extensively. I use it so much, I bought a used set on eBay for around 50 bucks. That way I have a spare set or a set for one of my nephews to use when they're helping me do stuff. So in an SHTF situation, what you find is this Gear Ratchet pass-through socket set is actually a general purpose tool, where people think it's a special purpose tool, but what it does is it bridges several gaps that you find with home tools. For instance, in the English SAE, this starts at 5/32, and it goes all the way up to 3/4 inch. This is the original Vortex pass-through socket set that Gear Ratchet, otherwise known as Gear Wrench, made. The parent company owns the patent to these ratchets that they fit in. The only real downside to this kit is this is a proprietary design, so these will not work in any other type of wrenches or drive systems other than this one right here. Now, the good thing about this set is when you're looking at it from an English and a metric standpoint, some of these metrics go down to like 4.5 and 4 millimeter and go all the way up to 19 millimeter. What that does is bridges the gap where you can work on microelectronics, small equipment, you can work on cars, and you can work on larger stuff. So these sets are very complete when you look at socket sizes. Now, this is the master kit that was made many years ago. This is called the 3/8 drive, and this is called the 1/4 drive, even though they don't look like it. And the way this works is these are your small extensions. These are your small extensions. So when you look at the small extension, it goes on like this. So once you have your extension on here, and this is your small extension, you can take a pass-through socket and put it in here. And what that does is gives you additional reach. Now, these sets come with this short extension, and then they come with a 3-inch extension. The downside is for many years they didn't make a 6-inch extension for these sets. Now what they do is they offer a master set like this with conventional handles on your ratchets. and they offer a 1/4 inch in a separate 3/8 inch drive set that you have articulated handles on here that flex. And with them, you get a 6-inch extension, but they don't offer those as add-ons to the other kit, which is a big mistake. So when we're looking at this, it allows us to work with a lot of fasteners that a deep socket doesn't have enough clearance to work with. The other thing is, when you put on these sockets, you find that these are stubbies. They have minimal clearance. So you can get these into a lot of areas you can't get a conventional socket into. And what I'll tell you is, working with the 3/8, you really want to have both the 3/8 and the 1/4 inch, because this 1/4 inch can go into a lot of areas you're not going to get your 3/8 in. So you're better off buying the master set. Now, what I did is I found out later that Craftsman offered these tools as their Max Access pass-through socket set. And they offered a auto ratchet in the 19.2 volt battery size. They never made this in any other tool series. So they're 20 volt tools. They don't offer this. This was produced for about 4 years, so they're pretty hard to find, but if you can find one, they're worth buying, because if you're doing a lot of assembly work, this will really speed up what you're doing. If you have arthritis, it gives you a lot of relief on your hands versus using a manual ratchet. Now, these tools, the Vortex series, is made under a lot of names over the years. So what you're going to find out is, you'll find them with Craftsman, you'll find them as Husky, Duratech, and many other names. Now, when you're looking at the Husky brands, what you're going to find is this is a alternative production version. This is a spline drive. And what you'll notice is the pass-through hole is actually a little bit smaller in the spline drives because of how they're manufactured. But the spline drive allows you to work on all types of fasteners. This was first marketed when Craftsman went from the standard Vortex type socket known as Max Access to Max Access Universal. And when they did that, they had these colored black, and then they went to all spline drives. That way you can work on Torx bolts, and you can work on hex caps and all kinds of things like that. And when you combine this together, you can go on eBay and you can find various extensions. I have extensions that were made by Husky. I have ones that were made by Sears in their Max Access line, and I have ones made by Gear Wrench. So instead of a 6-inch extension, I can take and fasten these together and make as long an extension as I want. Now what you're going to find is there are a lot of professional tool lines that are in the tool trucks that produce a set that is similar to the gear ratchet sets, but they're all proprietary. So they don't interchange with anything else. With the gear ratchet system, you interchange with Sears Max Access, Sears Craftsman Universal Max Access that has the spline drives, and all the Gear Wrench gear ratchet sets. Now, the main competitor, in my opinion, is actually Harbor Freight. So Harbor Freight has their own pass-through socket system. The downside to this is you only have a 3/8 drive. So when I've used this one on doing automotive and fine work, I find I have some small metric and SAE ratchets. The problem is with the large extension, it kind of nullifies your ability to get into tight areas. So that's the only real limitation on this set. The final limitation on this set is on this one. This is an early version, so this is a cast change lever. In the second generation, they went to a steel one and redesigned this socket so they don't have the tendency to break. But I've used this one for probably 8-10 years. I got it as soon as they brought it out. And I used this one as a mobile set in one of my vehicles. And then the 2 sets of the gear ratchet I keep in the shop and use around the shop along with the drive here. So when we're comparing tools with your gear ratchet, you have both the 3/8 and the 1/4 inch, which gives you a lot of access into working in tight spaces. The gear ratchet gives you a tremendous variety of sockets, so you can work on microelectronics, small equipment, guns, cars, large equipment, and you go up to 3/4 inch and also 19 millimeter on the metric side. Now, if you go into the Sears Craftsman tools, you can actually go up to 7/8 of an inch sockets. So there were some larger size sockets made for some of the other distributors that Gear Wrench never marketed in their own brand name. Now, the real upside to the Harbor Freight stuff is this fits a 19 millimeter wrench. So if you break this, it doesn't nullify your set, because what you can do is take a flex head or a regular rotating wrench or a standard wrench, and you can take and use these sockets on it. So I'll set one up and show you. So what I did is I got a long reach Duratec wrench that has the rotating head on it, and you can take these Harbor Freight sockets and they go in the 19 millimeter head, so you can use all these on a 19 millimeter wrench. I like this because I can take this and I can reach into areas I couldn't otherwise, and they function as a stubby socket because most of because half of the length of the socket goes into the wrench head. And with this, I can articulate it and do whatever I want. So I have both Duratec flex head and regular extended wrenches that I can use these sockets with. So that's a real advantage on the Harbor Freight, that you can use these in conjunction with other 19 millimeter wrenches. Now, I've tried the gear ratchet sets of sockets in all kinds of wrench sizes, both English and metric, and because of how they're designed, they don't fit any of them. Now, in my machine shop, I could probably take 15-20 minutes and actually modify a wrench to fit this, but the average person is not going to be able to find a replacement ratchet head to operate this system. So those are the 2 lines that I would work with, the gear ratchet, and you can feel comfortable if you're on eBay or you're at Home Depot looking at Husky stuff, or you're looking at used Craftsman stuff at a yard sale, you know that your gear ratchet, otherwise known as gear wrench set, will interchange with Craftsman Max Access, Craftsman Universal Max Access, and Husky tools. Now, I've seen Husky sets in both spline drive and in the 6-sided sets. So that's just kind of a summary of a way to increase your production. Please share your thoughts. We'll see you on the next video.